Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming.
All right. Hi.
I'm introducing myself.
I thought you were just going to go for it. So, all right, guys. My name is Paul Komsic. I serve on the New York State Brewers Association board. I represent all Long Island. I'd like to introduce to you. Sorry, I lost your last name as my iPad was flipping back around. Tara Hankinson. She's the co-founder and co-CEO of TALEA Beer Co. Both avid homebrewers with MBAs, Leanne and Tara met after leaving their corporate jobs in tech and media to join the beer industry. Working together on a daily basis, their passions quickly aligned, and they realized that they shared a vision to create a totally different beer company that would expand the craft beer market. After years of browsing beer aisles and visiting breweries, they found that despite the booming craft beer market, no breweries were actively trying to speak to customers like them. From confusing packaging to bearded bros with attitudes to dark industrial tap rooms, the male-dominated industry was lacking an appropriate, inclusive perspective and voice. Tara and Leanne knew that there was an opportunity to speak to a broader audience and launched TALEA, creating easy-drinking beers, perhaps to replace that glass of rosé, as quoted from the New York Times. TALEA's beers are at the intersection of high quality and low bitterness with fruit-forward flavors, beers that can comfortably share with your hard seltzer wine-drinking friends or with the most discerning beer connoisseur. Tara, everybody.
Thank you. That is the fundraising pitch deck version of our brand, not what I would present necessarily, not that it's wrong, but to this audience, you all know what craft beer is, you know where it's coming from, you know what the industry's been. And I'm really excited to share just a little sliver of our philosophy of, attracting new customers and how we go about that, because Leanne and I have business backgrounds. We are not brewers. I am most definitely not a brewer because Leanne manages the brewery, and I'm looking at one of our brewers here right now. But I think that we're all here at this conference because we want to learn new things and we want to make more money to support our businesses, to support our employees, to support the craft beer industry. And how do you make more money? One of the easiest ways is getting more customers or getting them to spend more when they're with you. So I wanted to kind of walk through some of the frameworks that we use to do that, and I'll happily take any questions during or after. And thank you for all coming here. It's a good turnout. So this is the agenda. I love pitch decks. I love slide decks, so sorry about that. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about our company and why you should care about my perspective. Maybe you don't. Maybe I'm totally irrelevant in the market you're in. New York City is we're based in New York City. New York State is a huge state. There are many different demographics, but I'm hoping at the very least you can get a kernel of something that might inspire you to go after a new customer base or just approach the way you think about customers differently. Then I want to talk through what your strategy is, your muse, who you're selling your beer to now, your current customer, how to get more data, and then how to grow and where to look for those next steps to keeping your brand relevant. So this is our philosophy. We're a female-founded brewery making easy-to-love beers, and our perspective is we want to expand the craft beer market. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you could put a couple barrels in the corner of your industrial brewery and everyone would want to be there because craft beer was so new and exciting and really a novelty. Now it's not so easy. We all know that with the many breweries, bars, and restaurants closing across the country. And so it's not as simple as making beer or even making good beer. We've all had bad beer in our lifetimes, but there's so much to compete with now. And now more restaurants are building up their beer list too. So you have a whole nother set of competitors. So just so you have the context of where we're coming from, Leanne and I are business people first, but we love beer. We love that you can make a recipe over and over and perfect it, unlike the wine world. We love the sense of community that comes from breweries, and that is really what inspired us to start the company. So we're both women, obviously. One of the things we felt was that there's so much great craft beer out there, but that if you're a woman who loves drinking rosé or drinking a margarita, a lot of the branding and language in craft beer can be pretty foreign. If you've never drank a craft beer except, you think Blue Moon is craft, or you think that, like Lagunitas is the epitome and only thing in craft beer. So our philosophy has really been to go after a customer that we felt wasn't being targeted in craft beer. For context, we opened in 2021 in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. That's our first location. It's our flagship. And now we have 4 other tap rooms across New York City, 3 in Manhattan, Williamsburg, and then another one in Brooklyn. So we scaled from a couple hundred barrels contract brewed in 2019 and 2020. And since opening in 2021, now we're at 7,000 barrels out of our brewery in Williamsburg. Our business is female forward, profitable, taproom centric, and we say totally different, easy to love. That's kind of the credo we use when we're thinking about the brand. So this is our strategy, and the reason I'm sharing this is just so you know where we're coming from, because before you think about understanding your customer, I think it's important to think about what differentiates you as a business. For us, we're one of the only 3% of craft breweries in America who are owned by women. It's also that we make really fun, unpretentious products. So we've served beers with ice in them because they were Aperol Spritz inspired. Some of you might call that blasphemy, but people bought it and it was delicious. We do beer slushies in a slushie maker. We do a lot of things that I think are just trying to, again, capture a market that's beyond just cracking open a can of West Coast IPA, which is my favorite style. If you don't know craft beer, you might not want to start with the West Coast IPA. So we're trying to make ourselves more approachable. And finally, and a lot of this presentation will be about the taproom experience. We do distribute. About 75% of the beer we brew goes out the door to distributors. Almost all of that is in New York City. But 75% of the revenue we make and almost all of our profits are from our 4-wall spaces. So it's not to say that you can't think about understanding your customer from a wholesale perspective and who's buying you in the grocery store, but obviously that's a lot harder. You're not talking to that customer, you don't have any data on them, even if you use platforms like VIP for sales tracking. It's so much easier to get information when you're selling direct to consumer, which, because we can't really ship beer across state lines for the most part, is in your tap room across the bar. So that's why we've invested so much in making our tap rooms beautiful and a nice experience that can compete with all the other great thousands of bars and restaurants in New York City that someone could spend their money at. So I would say the first thing about understanding your customer is thinking about your positioning. And so what we did when we built our pitch deck and started fundraising was think about what the problem is, and then we're obviously positioning ourselves as the solution that's going to cure everything. It's like if you've seen Silicon Valley, the TV show about startups, it's like, what if I told you there was a brewery that could blah, 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 blah. But to make it applicable to you, what problem are you trying to solve and who are you trying to solve that problem for? So thinking about your local market, where do you sit compared to other breweries, other experiences, any other way someone could spend their money, why would they spend it with you? Are you a place that's, right outside of an office park and you're serving the purpose or the opportunity is there are all these people leaving work and they don't want to drive somewhere else and drive home. You're fitting that happy hour profile. Another example would be your product portfolio and where's that fitting in? So I think that there are a lot of people, depending on where you are in New York, where you live, it's not easy to find a great affordable beer that's at almost any grocery store or any bodega or wherever you're shopping. So maybe your brewery could fit that profile of like, we're making a 6-pack of light lagers and it's going to be everyone's fridge beer in our region. So just thinking through what differentiates you, where you're positioned, and you can literally map out all the other competitors in your area, whether they're breweries or wine bars or whatever, and say like, we're the high-end experience, or we're the affordable experience, or we're the party place, or we're the place where everyone goes for dates, or the place where people in groups. Just start to think about what your strategy is. And that will help you take the next step, which is talking about your target customer. So all of these different attributes, whether it's demographic, psychographic, or really painting the picture, which I'll go through, is thinking about who is shopping with you now, who's visiting your brewery, who's buying a case of beer, who's inquiring about private events, and what does their profile look like. So you can look at, you can ask ChatGPT about what the demographics are in your zip code or in your region, and that's going to give you one data point of like, what gender are people, what's their average household income, what ethnicity are they. But I think if you start thinking through your neighborhood and the people you know coming into your space, you'll also be able to think about what their goals or desires are. So if some bars in New York City make their whole business off of other hospitality workers who are clocking out and want to have a drink at 2 a.m. And so that particular customer's set of needs and desires is way different than like, I want to grab a martini before I go to my dinner reservation. So that will help you to start to paint the picture of who your customer is. And we literally went down this route to get our Muse customer, who's the person who, when any business decision comes up, we're sort of benchmarking like, would she like this? Would she get it? Would she want to go to that event? And so here's our Muse. This is something we literally used in, presentations to investors and a presentation right now. But we're literally thinking about her, and I joke, but seriously, her name is Lauren. This isn't a real person. I'm making her up. She's 29. She goes to fitness classes, Pilates. She shops at Whole Foods. She goes to Sweet Green twice a week. She goes to Blue Bottle for her coffee. I mean, we're in New York, so this is obviously a very specific person who's like buying shit on TikTok or whatever they're doing. But doing this helped us sketch out, like, would she get the fact that, would she want to should we show March Madness? Is Lauren going to watch March Madness? Probably not, but it's not going to offend her. And so we're not doing everything for her, but she's kind of the person we have in the back of our mind. And that's because she's our main persona. She's the muse of the company. Any questions so far? Okay, cool. So that's a fun exercise, right? But you don't need to jump into that in the dark. You can think about who your actual customer is now and get as much information as you can, look for patterns, and then sketch out these different personas. And hopefully you're finding someone who is that like perfect customer walking through the door. It could be you. You built the brewery for yourself. You're brewing beers for you and your friends and your brew team. I'm too old to be Lauren, so I'm not our core target customer anymore, but 6 years ago when I started the company, I was closer in age to her. So now, I'm going to try to make this a little more humorous and not so academic, but I think there's a lot you can learn from stuff you already have in your arsenal and people on your team should already have access to. So one example is qualitative feedback of who's coming into your spaces. If you're not the bar manager, you're not closing at the end of the night, we have all of our managers send an end of night report that's basically noting any interesting customers or interesting experiences that happened. It also includes the top 5 best sellers for the day. So you can look that information up in your point of sale, but it's nice to be able to open as a business owner in the morning, open your email and be like, wow, our new Vienna lager is selling really well. Why is that? Who's drinking it? What's the behavior behind that? You can also take qualitative feedback through, for example, Google or Yelp. You can export it. There's literally buttons for this. You can upload it to ChatGPT. I'm not saying AI is the future, but it is a shortcut that everyone should use because it only costs $20 a month. And you can literally ask it to summarize trends. So we did this, for example, and we said, what are the things people are talking about in these reviews? And we found that a lot of them were saying, like, we love the atmosphere. The staff's really friendly. Great. That's awesome. That's great to know. What are the bad things that they're saying, and why are they saying that would be the next step of the psychology behind it. So, for example, people complaining about price. To me, people complaining about price is a good thing because if the thing they're most mad about is that things are expensive, it's like, it's New York City in 2025. Of course things are expensive. But if someone had consistently said that, I can't find anything on the menu that I like, or none of these beers tasted fresh, obviously that information could not only go back to our brewers, but also to our marketing team to start building this profile of who is having a good experience at our locations. Quantitative data, point of sale. So one example I would use point of sale data is looking at the average check size. So if you have, if your beers are $10 each, your average check size is $20. You're assuming either 2 people are coming in on one check, sharing it, each getting 1 beer, or someone's coming in and they're having 2 rounds and then they're leaving. That information is interesting when you start looking at adding new menu items like cocktails. Does that bring up the average check size? Are people switching out? Instead of having a beer first, are they having a cocktail first? There's a treasure trove of information in there, and it's a good way to also test things, test pricing too. Finally, another way to get even more data is ask your customers for it. We have a rewards program, and we did a campaign where if you filled out a survey, which took maybe 5 to 10 minutes, it was like 15 questions, we would give you $5 off towards a beer through this rewards program, and you'd have to sign up for the rewards program, which is great because and then every time they come into the tap room, they're using their rewards program, you can see what they're buying, and ultimately we found that people who had the rewards program, which doesn't really do much for free. There are some freebie elements, but really it's to build that habituation where someone's coming in frequently and using the rewards, showing that they're a loyal customer. We found rewards members spend 20% more than your average customer. We also found that they were bringing in more people, so they're spending more, and it's because they also have a larger group party with them. And we were able to get 600 responses ranging on feedback from open-ended questions like, what do you like about TALEA? Why did you come here? How did you find out about us? To specific drop-downs of like, would you consider us for this type of event, this type of event, this type of event? And you can do that on social media too. You can do polls. So all of this data, whether qualitative or quantitative, gives you the information to start looking for trends around your customers. So if you don't know who your target customer is, you don't know who your muse is, you can put yourself into their shoes, learn about this data, try to figure out who they are, and then what pain points do they have, and how can we alleviate those. So these are our personas that we've developed. So we have Lauren, but Lauren's just one person. We don't make much money if just one person comes in. We need more than that. And we found that a lot of people who want to hang out with Lauren also come to our tap room. So women bring other women. Some of the main ways we reach them is through community programming, because we found that people were using us as that third space. So if you're not familiar with the concept of the third space, it's not work, it's not home, it's another place you can go to. Starbucks penned that terminology. Starbucks isn't cool anymore, but breweries are cool because you can drink at them. And that is a great way to give someone, I love breweries. I love owning breweries because it's a casual place. People can bring a group of friends. They can go from 2 people to 10 people back to 2 people, and there's no table turn time. There's no, formality of dropping the check and kicking people out. And so we found that a lot of groups of women were enjoying visiting us. But then community programming also really brought them in the door. So now we do events that honestly, we don't make any money off of them when we do like an embroidery class. But it signals to those customers that we're there for them and we're open to having them. We want them to come to our space. Groups, I feel like everyone in this room can relate to breweries being a great place for groups because of the third place thing I just talked about. So that actually told us that we needed to get more large format seating because having little tiny tables isn't conducive to groups, and that's a way we're meeting that customer with what they need. We also added more menu items, so we don't have full kitchens, we don't have hoods, but we do have, a Ninja toaster oven for $200 that can reheat a Bavarian pretzel. And that solves the problem of that group where everyone has different levels of sobriety and they need something to snack on. We also found that one of our personas, our target customers, is the corporate world. Because we have locations in Manhattan that are close to offices, because we do private events where people know they can bring a team there, and because of the way we brand ourselves and what we talk about, people are excited to bring their corporation there. Yeah.
Quick question, do you guys have a full liquor license or just beer?
So we only have a full liquor license at one location, and then we have the branch office through the farm brewery. So we serve New York State, mostly vodka, gin, and rye whiskey at 4 of the locations, and then full liquor at 1.
What's your breakdown in sales between beer and hard liquor?
Most of the locations are about 60% beer, 15% wine, 15% cocktails, and then 10%, whatever's left of that, 20% food. But it depends on the location. Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. Actually, though, like our West Village location, if you've been to the West Village, it's so cocktail driven. And I actually did the math, and we would sell like $50,000 of espresso martinis last year just at that location. So you gotta give people what they want, and they want sugar, and they want hard alcohol in a martini. Yeah.
This is very specific. The West Village one is the one that's next to the industry.
Uh-huh.
Does that like affect the type of stuff you folks sell there, as opposed to the other location?
Yeah. Our West Village location is next to this really popular pizza place, La Industry. It affects us because they don't have much seating and there's a really long line. So we let people bring their pizza in, and then they don't order anything. And it's like one person orders one Diet Coke, which drives me nuts. So that's really affects us with staff training. You've got to upsell them. Food and bev wise, usually on the weekends and evenings, it's too busy for people to just bring in pizza. So we're still kind of that pre-dinner reservation, post-dinner reservation spot. But I would say those people aren't coming for us then. So on the downside, they don't know us. They're just buying the pizza next door and they want a place to sit down. On the upside, that's a totally new customer who never would have discovered us but for being co-located with this, Instagram famous pizza brand. So I wanted to touch on this marketing principle, but I actually love this. I love everything in this deck. So there's a concept of a customer funnel, and the whole idea is that when someone first learns about their brand, your brand, they're at the top. They just hear about it, or they walk past it on the shelf at the grocery store, or they're driving past your space and they see signage. And the goal of developing a relationship with your customer and understanding your customer is to bring them down this funnel. And so all the things you're doing when it comes to product innovation, marketing, hospitality should be getting people to move to the next step. So the first step is, they've heard of you. We always say you have to tell people 5 times, 5 different ways about your product. One way to tell them could be pouring at a festival. One way to tell them could be, doing a social media post, being straightforward about who you are, the signage on your space. There are so many ways to get in front of people. And then you want to get them to start considering buying you. So that would be, again, putting your product in front of them, giving them an offer, whether it's to join our rewards club, to come in the door. And then they convert. And so the way I think of conversion in the e-commerce world is like you're clicking checkout on your cart, right? But when we have a physical space, we don't have you left this in your cart, unless someone's stealing something and they didn't pay for it. And then it's like, you left that in your bag. But we think about it as the moment they walk through the door, we do all this stuff to try to attract people. Then no one's going to walk in the door of a brewery and not buy anything, but it's on your team to then, in the hospitality business, to get people to stay, to spend money, and to have a good experience, and ultimately to come back. And if you do a lot of things right, you get them to become a loyal customer. And that's where we see regulars, and ultimately that's what we want to do. So our perspective is not to have someone spend as much money in one visit. It's that we want to build a long relationship with them, have them, buy their beer when they're hosting like their 30th birthday party, or have a private event there when they get married. They have the post-wedding brunch with us or whatever. And hopefully they move to a point where they're an advocate for you. And that's when you've made it, because referral is one of the best ways to get new customers, whether it's people bringing their friends to your spaces or people saying like, I went to this event at TALEA, you have to throw, your work happy hour there, whatever. So you want to push people down those steps, and that's why taking stock of where people are with all this data is really important, so you can try to find insights to get a path that you can continue to replicate. So when I think of new customers and building that awareness, these are some of the tactics that are somewhat obvious, but just to spell out how we think about it. We do invest in a PR agency. It's a couple $1,000s a month, but they do two things for us that are really helpful. One is they get us on all those lists that are like, what to do this weekend in New York? Or if we do a class, which is why I recommend always on offerings, something you can do either for a month, like every Sunday of 1 month, or in perpetuity, like trivia. A PR agency can help you get that in front of new eyes. Another thing to do would be stunts or other things that are going to get press to talk about you, which could be the next point, collaborations or partnerships. So one fun one, we didn't do this, but I saw someone suggest to us that we should host a notary on Valentine's Day so that if you were getting divorced, you could get your papers notarized for free. We didn't do that. Right, that would have been awesome, but, you got to get 5 notaries for one at each of our locations. I'm just kidding. We're not very good at that, but I would love to be good at that because I think those things are so shocking and unexpected at a brewery that it really is newsworthy. Partnerships and collaborations. We're very big on partnerships and collaborations. We almost never collaborate with other breweries because there are only like 40 breweries in New York City. Not to say there are only, but people who are into beer know about the breweries in New York. So our perspective is to collaborate with businesses outside of beer to get access to new audiences. So when we're looking at a potential partner, we're looking at things like, sure, their Instagram followership, but also how many people are on their email list. So if they send an email promoting the collaboration, we know 20,000 new people saw a little blurb and a photo of the beer we make together. We also want to look at their ability to drive foot traffic. So we did a collaboration with Leven Bakery a few years ago. They're famous for their chocolate chip cookies. They were launching a frozen cookie in Whole Foods that you could bake from frozen in your oven. And so we did a dark chocolate chip stout and co-merchandised it at Whole Foods in New York City, only in New York City, as close to the freezer boxes as we could get. So it actually didn't work because Whole Foods doesn't put beer in the freezer, and sometimes they don't even put it in the refrigerator. So the concept, though, is that they're a high-profile brand that is known to drive people to brick and mortar. They're Instagrammable. We know people are going to post about it. We know people who don't know us know about them. So we really have nothing to lose. We only have new eyes to gain. And that can also be, that kind of principle of looking outside the box can be applied to product offerings and innovation. So I think what's working well in your space and how can you build on that? So we found that the opposite of a beer, we made a spicy margarita beer this year for Women's Month. We did the last 2 years. And now that we have a full liquor license, we launched a margarita, and it's our best-selling cocktail in Williamsburg. Well, everyone loves margaritas, duh. But we were surprised because we've never been able to do that before. So try to think about building on the things that do get traction for you. Is it trivia night? Can you introduce a different type of community-oriented game night that's free? If large groups are going well, can you offer a specific targeted package to bring them back, but has a minimum spend attached to it so you know you're going to make money off of them? And I think that sometimes just a signal towards a new demographic or a new persona works. So an example of that is we are family friendly. I know it's controversial, but parents need to drink. If you have kids, you know what I'm talking about. Because I have 3 kids and I like to drink because of them. I love them. But, yes, I don't want to go to date night and I already have screaming kids. I don't need those next to me at the brewery. And some parents don't read the room, right? They're bringing them at 4 p.m. during our peak hours. But you know who shows up at 10:30 a.m. on a Sunday morning for kids sing-along? Parents. And they spend like $2,000 in 2 hours for this kids sing-along. And the kids sing-along itself cost $40 a family. And that has become like the bread and butter of our Sunday mornings, to just see absolute havoc being brought upon our tap room. But those people book the kids' first birthday parties at the brewery, and they book their parties there because they know it's a kid-friendly place. And you know what? If you give them a minimum food and beverage spend, they're never going to meet it, because pink lemonade is only $4. So if you charge them $2,000 for an event, it's going to be profitable for you. So try to look at your own pain points and think about what would make this worth it for me. We also get a lot of inspiration beyond our walls. So we are constantly looking at what things are doing well, even if we don't think we're capable of them. What's hot in New York City? I bring up the espresso martini because we made like $100,000 on it last year across our 5 locations. We didn't invent it, and ours doesn't even have Mr. Black or whatever, because we can't sell that with a farm brewer's license. It's just espresso, vodka, and simple syrup. But that is a trend that you must be living under a rock if you haven't heard about the espresso martini. And it is something that enabled us to capture a late night crowd. It enabled us to, be more of a party, festive atmosphere in our spaces that are open a little later. Another example of beyond our walls, we work with this creator, Art Girl, and she does art classes, like vision boarding and things like that. Not necessarily a natural fit for a brewery to go cut out magazines and paste them onto a poster board, but her events sell out, and she brings in new customers who never would have known of us before. And we do it on off hours. So that's another way where it's win-win. Even if everyone only buys one drink, that's 30 more drinks that we sold. And they're not cannibalizing any of the business, because we're not full on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Another principle we try to think about is how to not necessarily have scarcity, but how do we make things feel a little cultier. We all know about the beer drop culture, which, at least for our business, was never a thing and probably will never be a thing, as much as we try. But I'm okay with that, because those customers are very finicky and they move on to the new brand. But how can we still create a sense of like exclusivity and scarcity? So one way we do that is by having limited ticket sales for events, or doing a pre-sale to rewards members or high value customers. So next week, for example, I'm hosting an event that's a fireside chat with the founder of a home goods store. Like, she sells linens and stuff, and she started doing embroidery. So we're having a pop-up embroidery shop. It's a free event to go to, but we paid for her to bring her antique sewing machines on site. Again, this is super niche, but J. Crew has paid her hundreds of thousands of dollars to do pop-ups at their stores in New York City, so you can buy your dress shirt and get it like embroidered with a smiley face. So I'm excited for that, because while our beer is not creating line culture, we can create that same type of energy with another partner who has way broader visibility than we do. We have about 30,000 Instagram followers. I think they have 60, 70, 100,000. So even if she does one story about it, we're getting in front of new people. So some of the questions to ask yourself: what are these different opportunities to access our Muse customer or new customers in general? And how will I measure success? If I roll out a new initiative, what makes it worth it for me financially? For example, is it worth it to buy 30 martini glasses if you don't know if your espresso martini is going to sell? Maybe you just have to do that calculation, which to me would be 30 martini glasses at $10 each from Webstaurant is $300. If I charge $18 for an espresso martini, I know I need to sell like 17 of them to make back the cost of those glasses, for example. And then there's a concept called the effort versus reward matrix, which just is basically when you think of all the projects you can do, which ones take the least amount of effort and are going to give you the biggest reward. The ones that are a lot of effort and low reward, you're never going to do those unless you are doing it as a pet project, which is like, we all have those pet projects in our breweries. But if it's going to be a lot of effort and a lot of reward, that might be worth it. An example of that would be expanding your food menu. It's going to be a pain in the ass to like get the kitchen equipment, do the layout, hire a chef. But you could bring in hundreds of thousands of dollars when people aren't ordering pizza from the pizza place down the street. So that's just one way to think through whether you should go or no go on these things. And that's pretty much it. I would love to answer any questions, and thank you for all of your attentiveness. Yeah?
What's in your margarita?
Tequila. Well, that's in our full liquor license. Yeah. Well, okay, I will tell you this. We, our general manager at our West Village location is so into like infusions and tinctures. So we can never serve tequila there, but she did jalapeno infused vodka and then uses it in a cocktail with one of our sour beers. So it's a peach, strawberry, guava sour beer. And then she called it Sweet Heat. So it's like a little tangy, a little simple syrup too. And then you have, basically the spicy margarita vibes. But it's also a beer cocktail, which is like, if someone says, oh, I don't drink beer. It's like, well, you drink cocktails. So meet us in the middle. Try that. Yeah.
For something like the espresso martini, when you're not doing it quite properly, is that something you're just very vocal and open with customers about? Do you get like negative feedback on that, or are people just kind of understanding given that you're not on a full liquor license?
What is a proper espresso martini?
I guess that's true. Yeah. I mean, I guess I was thinking like, say like we are currently like doing like Negronis. We're sourcing things from expensive alternatives since we're also on that same license. Mm-hmm. And do you think like trying to like recreate cocktails through different ways is maybe viable or?
Yeah, I mean, we find that the most classic cocktails tend to sell the best at our locations because we are a brewery. People aren't necessarily coming for a crazy mixology menu. And I don't think people are also coming for the best cocktail of their life. They're coming for something craftier than the dive bar on the corner. So I think if you're using quality ingredients and if you're training your bartenders to explain if anyone's like, oh, why is this, random gin from Long Island versus Hendrix or whatever, then you can explain, well, we're a brewery, we use New York State ingredients. We haven't really, the main challenge I would say is like, when you host a wedding and everyone's like, I'll have Tito's soda with a splash of cran, and it's like, we don't sell Tito's. We're a brewery. We will make you a vodka soda with a splash of cranberry juice, but it's not the customers who are organically coming to us. It's like, someone's great aunt from Arkansas wants something that we can't, a skinny margarita that we can't give her. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with the book Setting the Table by Andy Meyer.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of people in our industry or in hospitality are familiar with it. And I reread it again recently, and it sort of gave me a whole new perspective on what I've talked about at my brewery about when is a comp benefiting you. And I feel like all of us who have worked in the service industry, when they hear comp, they think, oh, the burger was overcooked, I spilled the filling on them or whatever, and I take it off the bill. But the thing that stood out to me about that, and I've been thinking about it with marketing is does it make sense to give away your product in order to build that loyalty that you were talking about in that slide earlier? The idea of $10 on the tab by giving a product away, and not, again, apologetically, but to allow that experience that the customer has, whether it's their first time or 100th time, to say, wow, I just spent $100 and unsolicited on my way out, my server handed me a 4-pack and said, we loved having the beer. What are your thoughts on the comp as a tool as opposed to a correction for mistakes?
Yeah, and I think Setting the Table and Enlightened Hospitality are two great books that are looking at the industry they're looking at the fine dining industry, but a lot of those principles, we all want the same thing. We want someone who wants to come back. Someone's only going to go to that fine dining restaurant once a year for their anniversary, but our customers could come back every day, maybe, if they...
Or tell that one story of that experience to all of their friends for the next year. It's like, you go out maybe, me maybe 5 times a year, but maybe the average person 30 or 40 times a year. You have that one experience that you tell people about, whether it's the worst or the one that stands out as the best. And my thought is, we bust our butts creating this product that is the least overhead for us. We pay rent, we pay everything else. This is what costs us pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
And if me handing this to somebody and saying, I don't want $7 for it, I value your presence here, how valuable of a tool can that be if used in the right way?
Yeah, there's a book, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's all about surprising and delighting customers. And
they said it at the opening today, like delight your customer. And I think that kept ringing through for me is like, when is it right to give a stranger a gift?
Yeah.
To turn them into a friend. And I kind of feel like that's a lot of what maybe marketing needs to think about more.
Because you're right that if we're all operating our brew houses efficiently, hopefully, selling a beer across your bar is 80, 85, 90% margin or more, depending on your pricing. So, you could raise your prices 50 cents and be able to give 1 out of every 10 beers away or something like that. But I think in my mind, I'm separating 2 categories of customers. One is your regulars. How do you reward them? And so when bartenders have regulars sitting there, it gets really intimate where we are open during the day at most of our locations. So they're making the coffee for that person before they even, get to their seat or whatever. That's a great way one way to channel that is to have a rewards program, because you are rewarding them you're creating a cycle of virtuous behavior where they spend money with you and then they get a perk, whether it's, your 10th beer free or something like that. When it comes to, your average customer and wanting to wow them, one thing we do is we are always encouraging our staff to give those sample pours that's like, 0.75 or 1 ounce of beer. So if someone's like, oh, I don't really know what to order, I was thinking these 2 IPAs, it's like, that literal just 1 ounce costs us literally pennies. So sure, that's going to, it's not just that it's cheap, it's a very high touch way of getting someone to introduce to your brand. We don't do that much surprising and delighting because I think our focus is more on just really warm, generous hospitality, which is like people knowing the beers front and back. You see someone walking into the door with the stroller, you go and run and open the door with the stroller. We do it for a lot of celebrations, like you see someone who just got engaged, you bring them, a glass or like a small pour of beer, a small pour of wine or something like that. I think it is a useful tool. I think the best way, if you're going to try it, is to measure it. And that means pulling reports from your point of sale around what's getting comped. Everything gets run in our business. There's no handing something off and not bringing it in. Even for me as the owner, I'm bringing everything in so that you could say how much did we actually give away? And then you can hopefully get the qualitative data of oh, these people came back. But I think it's a natural opportunity to go above and beyond would be not that run-of-the-mill person, but like if someone is hosting a private event with you, you know, sending them a gift card after a week after their wedding, like $100.
Your anniversary gift.
Yes,
Oh,
totally.
Yeah.
And those are, you know, you don't need someone sitting in front of house to do that. That can be set up on the back end. Or for corporate events, we've given like the admin who books the event a gift card for her to use for herself. So it's like, thank you for choosing us. You know, JP Morgan's paying for this happy hour, but you personally can come back on our dime. Ultimately, we leave it at the discretion of the managers of each location because they also know their clientele. But we used to have a rule like you can give away 2 drinks a shift, but then it just gets like, well, my friend came in. Okay, you can't give it to your friend. They're not, you know, that's the wrong type of regular.
Well, you were talking about the rewards program, which I think is great, but I don't know if other people have had the experience of like, I went to CVS recently, and there was a sale, and I like brought a box of cereal up, and they charged me full price, and they're like, all you need to do is sign up for the CVS number, and I was like, I'm not willing to share my information for $2 off.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, especially in this day and age where we all know that all the information that's out there, every rewards card we have is a way to track our purchases. And in a way, and again, this might just be my own opinion, that doesn't feel intimate or personable in the same way that, again, the stranger giving away something and asking for nothing in return for it may affect an individual in that singular experience.
Yeah, I'll just say one thing to that, which is it doesn't need to be free stuff. It can be like inviting someone to an event before anyone else gets access. It can be, you know, sharing information about a collaboration before everyone else knows about it. They don't even have to be able to buy the beer. It's more like we use texting and email as just another way to build that relationship. And we're not even selling stuff. We're just saying like, we want you to stay connected to us. We're going to give you that insider view. And that is free to tell them one day before everyone else that you're going to put another margarita on the menu the next day. Yeah.
Question. So we've been talking about creating this really warm environment, and that's something that's really important to us. Our brewery is also woman-owned, so creating like a really safe, inclusive space is important to us. We're also in rural upstate New York on a beautiful farm, so you have to, we're like a destination. You have to go out of your way to get there. One of the problems we do have, which you mentioned you don't really have, is we do get people who treat the place like a park and don't necessarily want to spend money when they visit. And so there's been this real like challenge of how do you create this like warm, inviting space that's safe for people, but like also with the expectation that this isn't free. What we do isn't free, right? So how would you suggest sort of marrying those two things?
Have you ever tested doing a ticketed event?
Yes, and we do have like seasonal ticketed events. In fact, we have like an event that runs most of the month of September. It counts for a third of our beer sales. And the pre-sale tickets do really well. The extra tickets do really well. People seem to like understand when they're there for an event, that they're there to sort of spend money. But on like an average day, when people will come on a day we're closed and expect us to just like let them in.
Oh yeah.
Like,
You get that all the time.
and then you have this conversation, like, you know, you spend 10, 15 minutes just like trying to be nice to talk to them, and you're like, this just derailed my entire afternoon. I was supposed to take a call 10 minutes ago, you know, like, it's just a little bit of a different sort of, you know, environment than like you, with what you're presenting here, but, that sort of turning them away, I think, creates a negative sort of online presence. Like you could get a bad Google review. When like you're just in a business, you know, isn't the expectation you arrive through my hours of operation and buy something? It would give you this space and make it safe for you, you know? I don't know.
I mean, we get bad reviews, but we try to respond to all of those and explain the situation. And I think people get confused because it's a brewery and you're drinking and they think everything's friendly, but rules are rules. And so with our team, if we have a no laptop rule at one of our locations, it's just like, we try to put it on the website, we put it on the menu, and training your staff that it's okay to say no. An example one of our prior employees gave me is like, people want to come in early, or they're like 10 minutes early and they want to be let in. You can't get in Chase Bank 10 minutes early. Chase Bank opens at 9 o'clock. So you have to draw the line somewhere. Same thing with like people's, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever, coming at close and like hanging out at the bar while you're closing. It's like, you can't lock up your safe at Chase Bank while, your partner's there watching you. It's like, this is a professional business, and setting the tone for that on as many channels as you can, I think will help. And then if someone gives you a bad review, it's like, our policies on our website, we get that with service dogs or not service dogs all the time, where they want to come in and it's like they think they can because it's a brewery, but we have a Department of Health permit, so we can't. And then having to educate people on that. But
we'll have people literally open up our farm gates and let themselves in.
But maybe,
Yeah, you got to draw the line there. Otherwise, like, if you give an inch, they're gonna take a mile. Like, we're in a brewery with another bigger brewery, and we do like cornhole days and all this stuff. We have to kick people out because they're constantly bringing in like high noons and like White Claw, and then they're like, I don't understand. This is a brewery. Why can't I drink it? And it's like, or again, whether it's like putting their jackets on our equipment or coming in early, it's like, I can't go into your job, and this is a workplace, and blah blah blah. You have to draw the line, and if you do get that negative review, respond. Hey, you opened up our front gates. You came in before we asked you 3 times nicely, and not to like try to get into a measuring contest online, because that never goes well. But like, if you're gonna get some nasty review by somebody who's literally kicking in your own gates and trying to let themselves in, let the public know that, like, hey, I'm not trying to just roll this customer over the coals. Like, no, they thought they owned the place, and we weren't even open, kind of a thing. You have to draw the line, because otherwise, like, they will just continue to walk over, and then they'll come back in again with their friends, and then their friends will think they could do that to you too. Like,
Is there a sign at the gate?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
yeah, signs don't work. Like, all over our brewery, it's children must be supervised by responsible parents, and they get upset about that. So at the end of the day, like, you have to look out for yourself. You have to draw a line, and we've got like 1 more minute, maybe enough time for 1 more question before the next session starts. But
or not. Oh yeah.
I have a question regarding, you said you cater to families and you want it to be a welcoming space for them to bring their children in. For IDEM, we don't cater to families or children. We still allow families, obviously, but we don't promote that, I guess. How do you think that affects your business? Because like for me, I don't want to go out and have a beer and deal with other people's children. I have my own, and I would like to deal with them only. And you'll see online where breweries are putting all of these new rules in effect, children after 6 p.m., children on these days. And for me, like certain larger events, I'll do 21 and over only. But then you see all of this like feedback on these posts, parents that are like, well, I'm never coming back. Like, I just wanted to come and,
and bring my stroller at 8 p.m. and drink beers and then watch you drive me home. Like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I do see it from both directions, but I'm really curious, like the people that are promoting that they're family friendly, do you feel that that's really impactful and helping your business? Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's also based on like your location and where you are. And if there's a lot of young families, you have to cater to them.
Then you do like A/B testing then on that?
You could do like a Sunday. I saw an event recently that was like, someone was bringing like sensory boxes for kids to a brewery. It was a ticketed event from 12 to 2 on a Sunday, $45 per adult. You can bring your kid, you get a beer, and there's like toys for the kids to play, see what the demand is. I wouldn't say we are promoting that we're family friendly. We just we want to be inclusive, because most people in America end up having kids, and then we would lose those customers. And yeah.
Maybe pick one day of the week and promote that as a family day, either with activities that are for children, and then that way maybe you'll get more of a concentration.
We always allow children. The only times we don't allow children are during certain things. Like St. Patrick's Day for us is a huge thing. We're like jam-packed. And so if we have, 15 strollers rolling in, we have a very small tasting room. We don't have a large footprint. So things like that impact our business then. I don't have enough seats for paying customers at that point. So that is a 21 and over. But every other day of the week, we're family friendly, we're just not catering towards that. And I'm just curious if other people find that it is actually beneficial to cater to families.
I think it depends on your personas, like who's spending money with you. Where do you think the opportunity is too?
Yeah, was there any negative comments about children's fees? You might have gotten that with one, not one of the all along, on Facebook, all of the ticket that doing.
I think you always see that. I think, you always see it over days.
Yeah, you're never going to be able to please everybody.
Yeah.
What about a stroller?
All right, thank you. Yeah, stroller charge, I like that idea. Yeah, round of applause for that. Everybody give it up for Tara. Thank you guys for coming out.